I'm Jennifer Rabb, and I have the wonderful privilege of being the president of the phenomenal Hunter College, which is the largest school in the largest public urban university system in the country. We are a place where the American dream still comes true, being the home of many people who first in their families to go to college. And 1 out of every 5 students was not born in this country and really comes here to find their dreams. And this is an audience of people with great dreams and great success. And when my dear colleague and friend, Dr. Jennifer House, asked if we could do this event here, I was just thrilled, because this is a place of deep history, and the March of Dimes is an institution with extraordinary history, and certainly Sears and Kmart, they're here today, they're just really making a difference. It's also just a historic commitment to philanthropy and to such an important cause. So where are you? You were in Roosevelt House. This house was the gift from Sarah Roosevelt when Franklin decided he was going to marry Eleanor. Now, Mom Sarah was a very doting mom, so I guess there's many moms in the audience, and we all know are a little protective of our children. Franklin was really up there, Sarah was really up there on that. She adored her only son, was not thrilled he was marrying his, one of his cousins removed, and was not completely wild about Eleanor. But she did decide to build them this house as a wedding present. It was just one stipulation. She kept this half for herself. We like to call it the first New Deal. And they lived here together. Eleanor had 5 children here, so having the children here today is actually very beautiful because this house was filled with children. And Eleanor and Franklin lived on one half, Sarah lived in the other, but the first 3 floors adjoined. And Eleanor would say, I never knew where I would see Sarah day or night. So if anyone here thinks you have mother-in-law problems, just think again. The couple live here, they have their 5 children. He goes off to Washington, he's in Albany, but the house becomes very important in 1921. Now, why is that? All of you know that is when, of course, Roosevelt was stricken with polio. And because the house was built with an elevator, which was actually somewhat unusual in 1908, he was able to come back here and put back together his political career. So he built himself a hand-operated wheelchair, very narrow, and he was able to navigate around the house. He worked with his political advisors, and he ran for governor of New York in 1928, and then comes back to the House in 1932 and plans his political comeback to the top office in the country to become the President of the United States. So on November 8th, 1932, on the steps that you came into this morning, Sarah Roosevelt stood and waited for her son to come home as the newly elected President of the United States and said to him, "This is the happiest day of my life." For the history buffs in the room, you will remember that the inauguration in those days was not until March. So from November to March, all of the administration was planned here. So you are in the home of the New Deal. This is really where it was all envisioned. And this is where Roosevelt's commitment to social justice, his commitment to government supporting the people and what government could do as an activist time in the terrible depression was all born. And I hope you get a chance to take a little tour through the house. The white room on the 2nd floor is where Franklin Roosevelt gave his first radio address on NBC radio on November 9th, 1932, talking about the economic recovery. And in his small library is packed, for me, one of the most precious parts of the home. Eleanor suggested, Franklin, it's time that you have a woman cabinet secretary. So he invited Frances Perkins to that library, sat her down, said, I'd like you to be the first woman cabinet secretary. And she said, only if you create a program that ultimately becomes Social Security. So this house was so rich in history. How does Hunter College come to have it? Well, when they moved in, Hunter was, and it still is, on 68th Street, 3 blocks uptown. And we don't know exactly how Eleanor and Hunter College created this wonderful relationship, We just assume that Eleanor just had to get out of the house sometimes. So we know she really bonded. We have alums from the 1930s who would talk about how Eleanor invited these bunch of girls, and it was all women's school, over to the house, make them grilled cheese. She said we were so naive, Mrs. Roosevelt made us grilled cheese, and we're talking about basketball. Now look at this woman, she's very tall, these are clearly two stories. Mrs. Roosevelt was our commencement speaker in 1942. She invited the 100 college presidents to the White House. And there was a very strong relationship. So in 1941, when Sarah dies, Roosevelt said Hunter should buy this house. And Franklin writes the first $1,000 check. We buy the house for $50,000, one of the best real estate deals ever made in this country. And we use it. We're a public school, we're a commuter school, and this is a one social place. They envisioned it as an interfaith center. So Hunter Hillel was here, the Newman Society, a newspaper. Many women got married here before the men went off to war in the 40s. Ironically, under the picture that you see upstairs of the domineering mother-in-law, how those marriages worked out. But it was a place of our real home. And when I arrived at Hunter in 2001, 10 years ago, the house had been shuttered for almost 10 years because we had used it so much. And as a public institution, we never really maintained it, that it was not usable anymore. And we had a vision that we would restore the house, restore the Roosevelt legacy for our students. And we made it a public policy institute where students have certificates and in human rights and in public policy, faculty do research, and we open homes to groups like yours today. And what better place for you to be where the person who gave birth to the March of Dimes, who dreamed it, who envisioned it, whose leadership made all that you're doing and celebrating today possible. So how wonderful to come full circle with you and to welcome all of you here today. I know that Franklin and Eleanor are really in this room with us, their spirit, and congratulating you in all that you've done. And really, I think we'd be so proud of the corporate philanthropy here that you made possible, that how wonderful that Kmart is here, that you're doing so much for the children and for science, really, and research in this country. So I salute you, and I salute all of you for everything that you've done. And speaking, saluting people and true heroes, it is a pleasure to welcome back once again, because she's often a visitor on our Health and Science panel, Jennifer House, who's a national leader in health and science. She is, as you know, the president of the March of Dimes Foundations for over 2 decades, launching national campaigns to expand newborn screening, promote folic acid education, and prevent preterm birth. Dr. House has globalized the March of Dimes research and advocacy programs and has achieved the sustained fundraising that you celebrate today. Her list of public service appointments are too long to go through, but she's made an incredible impact on the development of the disabled, serving on so many boards, including the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. And in recognition of these and so many other achievements, has just been inducted into the prestigious National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine. Jennifer, it's always a pleasure to have you back, and congratulations to you and the March of Dimes and to Kmart for everything that you've been able to accomplish, and good luck, and welcome to all of you. Wonderful to have you here.
Beautiful twin boys right over there, and I'm here to tell you about the journey that I had to take to get here today. Let me start by saying that I didn't enjoy being pregnant. I did not have an easy pregnancy. I'll spare you the details of how I learned how to throw up on the train on the way to work every morning and a lot of variety of other places. I thought, or I hoped, that that would be the worst of it. But at 26 weeks, I went in for a routine ultrasound. My maternal fetal medicine specialist saw something unusual with the umbilical cord, and she called me into her office to tell me that she thought I had a condition called vasoprevia. Vasoprevia is a rare condition in which the fetal blood vessels are unsupported by either the umbilical cord or the placental tissue. I was told that I could lose one of the babies if my water broke or I had any contractions that disturbed these blood vessels. I would not be allowed to go into labor, and I would need a C-section to deliver the boys. At 26 weeks, I was immediately hospitalized. After days of close monitoring and countless tests, I was sent home on bed rest. A few weeks later, I was hospitalized for the duration of my pregnancy. I was a day-by-day case with the goal of making it to 32 weeks. I went from worrying about having my babies on Christmas to having babies with a Halloween birthday. How could they possibly arrive a whole season early? I can't tell you how many doctors I saw in a day. My white blood cell count kept dropping, so I had to see a hematologist. Then I had to see a cardiologist. There was specialist after specialist. The good news is that I didn't have that much time to get bored while I was stuck in a hospital bed. And I tried to remember that every doctor and every test was designed to help my babies arrive as healthy as possible. I tried to be thankful that the research and the medicine existed for the doctors to do the things that they were doing. In late October, at 30 weeks, my other baby went into distress. My OB came in and said, "It's time." My time for what? She can't deliver the babies, it's too early. But my doctor felt that there were too many risk factors and baby B's heart had stopped. So she rushed me into the C-section. As I lay in my hospital bed with all my nurses and my doctors prepping me, I was now worrying for both of my babies. I called my husband, who luckily worked locally, and he barely made it to the hospital, changing into his scrubs right outside of the operating room. But as you can tell by looking over here, my ending is a happy one. Luke Thies Manganello was born at 3 pounds, 11 ounces, 16 and a half inches long. And 1 minute later, John Hunter Manganello was born at 3 pounds, 1 ounce, and 16 inches long. The boys were whisked away right after they were born. They needed help breathing, and they were under life for jaundice for about a week. It was frustrating for me to not be able to touch them since they were attached to so many machines inside their isolets. I didn't even want to name the boys because I couldn't see their faces for the first few days. I didn't know what they looked like. I hated that I could only visit the NICU once every 3 hours. The babies had tubes for IVs, tubes for food, lots of tubes for the month. Luke and Hunter were pricked every day for countless tests. They had numerous brain scans. The whole ordeal was quite stressful. I came to realize that the experience is deeply personal and that everyone reacts in their own way. I just kept trying to stay thankful that my boys were doing as well as they were. I took it one day at a time. The neonatologist would give us one goal or one milestone a day and tell us what to look for. They helped to make the experience manageable. Every night as I prepared to go home, I would get sad that I had to leave my boys behind. I had a ritual where I would tell them their goal for the night. It started out with me begging them not to lose any more weight since they had dropped to 2 pounds. Then it became me asking them to gain an ounce every night. Day by day, our goals got bigger and bigger. After 2 weeks, the boys graduated from the critical side of the NICU to the regular side of the NICU, and I finally started to relax a little bit. They were still only 2 pounds. They were still in isolets. They still couldn't eat on their own or maintain their body temperature, but they had come off a few of the machines. We had dodged a lot of bullets, and for that, we thank the research of the March of Dimes. The March of Dimes has funded remarkable medical advances, sponsored NICUs, developed surfactant to treat respiratory distress, taught moms about the importance of folic acid. The list goes on, and Dr. House mentioned quite a few of them. My family used many of these developments that the March of Dimes was funded. We are very grateful to all of our doctors and nurses, the March of Dimes, and all the fundraising efforts of Kmart, and people like you. Your efforts are what gave my boys a chance to live and be healthy. By supporting the March of Dimes mission to continue to strive to give every baby a healthy start in life, you gave my boys and millions of other babies a chance to live and be healthy. And so a heartfelt thanks to all of you in this room, to Kmart, and the March of Dimes for all that you continue to do. I'd like to introduce you to Luke and Hunter. Looking at them now, it's hard Now, before I step down, I want to introduce you all to Deidre Merriweather. She's the Senior Vice President and Chief Operation Officer for Sears and Kmart, whose store teams have been responsible for so much of what we are celebrating here today. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Deidre.